December 13th, 1939. 06:18 hours. In the South Atlantic, off the mouth of the River Plate, a British heavy cruiser opened fire on a German pocket battleship. The arithmetic of the encounter was almost absurd. HMS Exeter displaced 10,620 tons, while her opponent, Admiral Graf Spee, displaced 16,000. Exeter mounted 6 8-inch guns. Graf Spee carried 6 11-inch guns. Her shells weighed 2.6 times as much as Exeter's. Her maximum range exceeded Exeter's by more than 4 nautical miles. Her turret armor was 5.5 times thicker, and she carried a working radar set alone among the warships in that morning's action. Every specification on paper said Exeter should have been at the bottom of the harbor inside 20 minutes. 90 minutes later, Exeter was a wreck. Every turret silenced. Her bridge swept clean of men. Her captain, conning the ship from the stern, relied on a human chain of sailors relaying orders by voice. Flooding forward, fires amidships. 7 11-inch shells absorbed, and yet 4 days later, it was Graf Spee that burned on the bottom of the River Plate, scuttled by her own commander in a neutral harbor. This is how the crews of the Treasury, built on a budget, broke a ship designed to outfight everything that could catch her. To understand why this should never have happened, you need to understand what Graf Spee was built to do. By the early 1930s, Germany faced a naval arithmetic problem. The Treaty of Versailles capped her warships at 10,000 tons standard displacement. She could not build battleships. She could not rebuild the high seas fleet. So her naval architects did something different. They designed a commerce raider that carried battleship guns on a cruiser hull, driven by diesel engines capable of running 16,000 nautical miles without refueling. The British press called the result a pocket battleship. The doctrine behind the design could be summarized in one sentence: outgun anything fast enough to catch you. Outrun anything strong enough to kill you. Graf Spee was the third of her class, and the most refined. 8-man diesels producing 54,000 horsepower, 6 11-inch guns firing 300-kilogram shells to almost 40,000 yards. Welded construction saved nearly a fifth of her hull weight, and a SEACT radar set mounted on her foretop made her the first German warship to carry radar into action. The Royal Navy had nothing equivalent at sea in 1939. On August 21, 1939, Graf Spee slipped out of Wilhelmshaven under the command of Captain Hans Langsdorff. By the first week of December, she had sunk 9 Allied merchant ships, totaling over 50,000 gross tons. Remarkably, she had done it without killing a single Allied merchant seaman. Langsdorff, a veteran of Jutland, observed prize rules with careful punctilio. His victims were taken aboard, filled, and later released in neutral ports. The admiral's problem was simple. Graf Spee had the entire South Atlantic to hide in. She could outrange any cruiser. She could outrun any battleship. With 16,000 nautical miles of endurance, she could keep doing it for months. The Royal Navy's answer was Force G, the South American Cruiser Squadron, commanded by Commodore Henry Harwood. 3 ships: HMS Exeter, Captain Frederick Bell, HMS Ajax; flagship, Captain Charles Woodhouse, and the New Zealand, manned HMS Achilles, Captain William Parry. Exeter herself was the underdog even within her own navy. She was the second and last ship of the York class, Britain's deliberate budget alternative to the county-class heavy cruisers, built to do the same job for less. Shorter hull, 6 8-inch guns in 3 twin turrets instead of 8 and 4, half the secondary battery, Les Endurance, and critically, turret armor, just 1 inch thick on the faces, splinter shields, not proper armored redoubts. A single well-placed 11-inch shell could gut one in a moment. She had been laid down at Devonport Dockyard in 1928, launched the following year, and commissioned in 1931. By the time war came, she was the last heavy cruiser the Royal Navy would ever build. Only 2 of the planned 7 York-class ships were completed. The Depression killed the rest. Exeter entered the war as a compromise vessel in a conflict that had no place for compromises. On paper, putting her against Graf Spee was a mismatch so severe that British naval doctrine explicitly forbade it. Marine doctrine forbade it from the other side. 2. Grand Admiral Raeder had ordered Langsdorff not to engage warships of comparable strength. Damage in distant waters could not be repaired. What Harwood had instead of better ships was a plan written himself as a staff officer at the Royal Naval War College in 1934. It called for dividing the force, attacking from 2 bearings at once, forcing the enemy to split her main battery between 2 targets, dispersing her fire, or concentrate on one division and leave herself exposed to unopposed fire from the other. On December 12th, Harwood signaled his captains. His policy was clear: attack at once, by day or by night. 1st Division, Ajax and Achilles, would concentrate their 6-inch fire together. Exeter would operate independently, drawing fire with her 8-inch guns and permitting flank marking, closing the range, forcing a decision. At 0530 on December 13th, Graf Spee's lookout spotted masts off the starboard bow. Langsdorff assumed a convoy with a single escort and closed at speed. In doing so, he made the single most important tactical mistake of the action. At 25,000 yards, only his 11-inch guns could reach. At 18,000 yards, Exeter's 8-inch guns could reach back. At 0618, Exeter opened fire. The 3rd German salvo straddled Exeter. An 11-inch shell burst amidships, killing the starboard torpedo crew and riddling both of Exeter's Walrus reconnaissance aircraft. The aircraft, dripping aviation fuel, were manhandled over the side by hand to prevent a fire aboard. 6 minutes into the action, catastrophe struck. A direct 11-inch shell smashed the front of Exeter's B turret. The turret was destroyed. Splinters ricocheted off the underside of the bridge roof, sweeping the bridge horizontally. Every man on the bridge was killed or wounded except Captain Bell and 2 others. Wheelhouse communications were wrecked. The ship swung uncontrolled to starboard. Wounded by splinters to the face, Bell made a decisive choice. He would fight from the after-conning position, but every communication circuit to the off-steering station had been cut. Every compass repeater was destroyed. So Bell organized a chain of sailors posted at intervals down the ship, shouting helm orders by voice. Man to man, from his position off to the tiller flat below, he navigated using a boat's compass, the kind you find in a ship's lifeboat. 2 more 11-inch hits struck forward. A 3rd passed clean through without bursting. A 4th, a delay action round, detonated in the chief petty officer's flat midship, starting a major fire and bursting water mains that flooded the 4-inch magazine. A 5th hit destroyed a turret. By 0650, Exeter was listing 7 degrees to starboard, down 5 feet by the bow, on fire amidships. With 2 of her 3 main turrets out of action, only Y turret at the stern still fired. Her gunnery officer, Lieutenant Commander Jennings, directed Y turret's fire by standing on the after searchlight platform above the muzzles of the guns, spotting the fall of shot with his own eyes. She kept shooting. Exeter fired her torpedoes, 6 21-inch torpedoes, 3 from each broadside. All missed. But what they forced mattered more than a hit. Graf Spee had to turn away under smoke to comb her tracks. While she turned, Exeter's 8-inch shells kept arriving. 3 of them found their mark, and one of those 3 decided the battle. An 8-inch shell penetrated 2 decks and detonated inside Graf Spey's fuel oil purifier. This was the hit that killed the ship. Graf Spey's manned diesels could not run on untreated fuel. The purifier was the only machine aboard that could clean it. Without the purifier, she had perhaps 16 hours of usable fuel in her service tanks and no way to process what remained in her bunkers. A second 8-inch hit destroyed the desalination plant, the machine that produced fresh water for the diesels. A third narrowly missed an engine room. The galley was wrecked. Holes in her bow were visible above the waterline. She had taken roughly 20 hits in total, and her crew suffered 36 killed. At 0740, Harwood turned his cruisers under smoke, believing incorrectly that Ajax was nearly out of ammunition. Langsdorff made the same decision. He broke off the action and steered west. Exeter limped south. At 11:05, she signaled her state, "All turrets out of action, forward." Flooding up to number 14 bulkhead. 18 knots possible, 61 men killed, 23 wounded. Harwood ordered her to the Falkland Islands for emergency repairs. Graf Spey ran for Montevideo. What followed is one of the most effective pieces of naval deception in British history. Langsdorff requested 14 days for repairs. British diplomatic pressure through the Uruguayan government limited him to 72 hours. During those 72 hours, British intelligence broadcast false signals, implying that Force H, including the aircraft carrier Ark Royal and the battlecruiser Renown, was already on station outside the harbor. In truth, only HMS Cumberland had arrived from the Falklands, steaming 1,040 nautical miles in 34 hours at nearly full speed. Langsdorff believed the deception only mattered because the purifier hit had already made his ship strategically broken. His fuel could not be processed in 72 hours. His crew could not eat hot food. His hull could not survive the North Atlantic winter. Berlin forbade internment in Uruguay. On December 17, 1939, at approximately 6:54 p.m. local time, Graf Spey weighed anchor with only Langsdorff and a 42-man demolition party aboard. She proceeded 6 miles southwest of Montevideo and scuttled herself. 20,000 spectators watched her burn to the waterline. Ajax's spotter aircraft signaled the news to Harwood. Graf Spey was, in her own words, ablaze from end to end, flames reaching almost as high as the top of her control tower. 3 days later, in a Buenos Aires hotel room, Hans Langsdorff, dressed in full uniform, laid himself on the bed of the Imperial German Navy, not the Nazi war, and shot himself. His final letter accepted sole responsibility for the scuttling. He was 45 years old. Several British merchant captains whose ships he had sunk attended his funeral. The evidence for British superiority at River Plate is not in the paper specifications. On every specification, Graf Spey was the better ship. The evidence is in what happened. Graf Spey fired 414 11-inch shells, scoring roughly 7 direct hits on Exeter. That is a hit rate of under 3% with radar assistance and longer range. Exeter and her sisters, firing lighter guns with older fire control and no radar at all, put roughly 20 shells into Graf Spey. 3 of those 20 were Exeter's 8-inch rounds. One of those 3 hit the exact machine, the fuel purifier, that could not be replaced at sea. Exeter absorbed 7 11-inch direct hits and remained afloat under command, able to steam at 18 knots. Her damage control parties kept her watertight through flooding that should have opened her bow to the sea. Her crew cohesion, the human chains, the improvised compasses, the gunnery officer spotting over the muzzles of his own guns, converted catastrophic damage into continuing combat. Langsdorff himself, speaking to Captain Patrick Dove, master of the sunk British tanker Africa Shell, summed it up after the action. He said the British cruisers had come at him like destroyers. He said they kept coming. He said he could not believe they dared do this unless they had bigger ships behind them. He said, "Those British are hard." Exeter spent 13 months at Devonport being rebuilt. She received a new bridge, new radar, Type 279 for air warning, Type 284 for gunnery, making her among the first Royal Navy cruisers to carry both. Her anti-aircraft battery was upgraded, including twin 4-inch mounts and octuple 2-pounder pom-poms. On March 11, 1941, she recommissioned under Captain Oliver Gordon. By the end of that year, she was in the East Indies. Her war should have ended triumphantly. It did not. On February 27, 1942, Exeter fought at the First Battle of the Java Sea as part of the Allied Abda striking force. An 8-inch shell from the Japanese cruiser Haguro penetrated her after boiler room, knocking out 6 of her 8 boilers. She survived, limped back to Surabaya in Japanese-occupied waters, repaired 2 boilers, and attempted to break out for Ceylon. She did not make it. On March 1, 1942, roughly 90 miles north of Baween Island, Exeter was intercepted by 4 Japanese heavy cruisers, Nachi, Agudo, Ashigara, and Miyoko, and 4 destroyers. With only 2 destroyers in company, HMS Encounter and USS Pope, she was outnumbered 4-1 in heavy ships. The Japanese had aircraft spotting for them. She had no air cover at all. She fought to the end. Exeter's 8-inch guns, the same guns that had crippled Graf Spee 6,000 miles from home, returned Japanese fire as long as the turrets had power and the magazines had shells. Encounter made smoke to cover her. Pope launched torpedoes. For nearly 2 hours, 1 British heavy cruiser and 2 destroyers held off a force more than twice their weight. Then, a Japanese 8-inch shell severed Exeter's last main steam line. Her engines stopped. Her dynamos died. Her turrets froze. Her steering failed. Captain Gordon ordered the scuttling charges opened, and the Seahawks cracked. As she lay dead in the water, the destroyer Inazuma closed in and launched a spread of torpedoes. 2 struck home on her starboard side, 1 amidships and 1 forward of a turret. At approximately 11:40 a.m., HMS Exeter capsized to starboard and sank. 54 of her crew died in the action. 651 were taken prisoner. 152 of those men died in Japanese captivity, most at the Makassar camp on the island of Celebes. Captain Gordon secretly wrote his 12-page action report in Zensuji prison camp and smuggled the rolled manuscript home, hidden inside a tube of shaving cream. He delivered it to the Admiralty in December 1945. Her wreck lay on the seabed at about 200 feet for 65 years. In 2016, a Dutch expedition preparing for anniversary commemorations made a shocking discovery. Illegal salvage operations, using explosives and grab cranes, had stripped Exeter almost entirely to the seabed for her pre-atomic steel and bronze fittings. The cruiser that would not die had finally been taken apart by scavengers. Her dead remain commemorated on the naval memorials at Chatham, Plymouth, and Portsmouth. Exeter was built as a compromise. She fought as proof. She proved that the Royal Navy's willingness to engage a superior force, its damage control training, gunnery accuracy, and crew discipline could turn a paper mismatch into a strategic victory. She proved it the only way such things can ever be proved, by what the enemy did. After meeting her, Graf Spee scuttled herself in a neutral harbor 4 days after her guns fell silent. Exeter fought on for another 27 months before going down against 4 heavy cruisers and 4 destroyers, with her captain still giving orders and her engineers still fighting to keep her alive. The cruiser that should not have won forced a pocket battleship to destroy herself. The cruiser that should have been replaced after River Plate went to the bottom of the Java Sea 2 years later, still fighting an enemy that outnumbered her 4-1. That is not luck. That is not doctrine on paper. That is the Royal Navy, earning the waves, the only way they can be earned. Thank you for listening. Comment? Like. Subscribe if you found this useful or want to share your thoughts.